Everything you want in life, I believe, is right outside your comfort zone.
Author Eric Johnson, The Switch Within. Author Eric Johnson, The Switch Within. Sunday Night Live.
Hey, how y'all doing? Welcome to this special edition of Sunday Night Live. And I have a very special guest that's going to join us, Pastor Michael Smith. Pastor Smith caught my eye. I was doing some deep, intense research on the study of murder in music. And it led me to a TED Talk with well over 1 million views. And I mean, Pastor Smith really dropped some deep information. So without further ado, y'all, I want to introduce you to none other than Pastor Michael Smith. Pastor, how you doing this morning?
I am doing great. It is great to be on, and it's going to be a good conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So for those that may not know you, tell us who you are and where you're from.
Oh, okay. So I'm from all over, born in Indiana, raised in Orlando, became an adult in Atlanta, pastored in Jacksonville, and I'm now back in Atlanta. I'm an author. I'm a student of the human experience, a storyteller, and been pastoring in one form or another for about 30 years. And I think building lives is my passion. Communicating, opening minds, opening eyes. I'm fascinated by the external transformation that follows the internal transformation, and I'm also kind of a nerdy, geeky guy. I got 2 kids. I got a dog and my wife, and we call ourselves the Best Friends Gang. So I'm a family man, and I think that's about it. I mean, you kind of summed it up. I deal with this. Issues of racism and inequality and all this other kind of stuff. It's I wouldn't say that's my passion. I would say that's the thing that keeps tapping me on the shoulder and keeping me up at night. And so I think that's how we got here to this conversation.
Absolutely. And just to let the viewers know, I don't know you, you don't know me.
No.
I saw the TED Talk and God told me to reach out to you. And when I reached out to you, you were so friendly and kind. Definitely the epitome of a man of God. So I definitely want to appreciate you. Thank you so much for, taking time out of your schedule to talk about an issue that's plaguing our community. If you will, kind of give us what led up to that TED Talk titled Black Murder is Normal.
Okay. So yeah, Eric, so I kind of grew up in an all-white world in Central Florida. When I say all white, of course, it wasn't all white, but for all intents and purposes, that's what my world was. I dropped out of high school when I was 17, relocated from Central Florida to the south side of Atlanta, a little city called College Park, and I instantly was in the opposite. I was in an all-black world. I went through Bible school. I was the only white kid in Bible school. Where I worked, where I lived, where I fellowshipped, where I went to church. All of my friends, became a youth pastor and associate pastor. Have traveled the whole world as really the only white guy in almost every room. Um, I say only, of course. The church I was with was about 20,000 people at the time, maybe 100 white people, maybe at that time. But when I first joined it, there was about 1,500 people, and I mean, if there were 4 or 5 white people, so I actually became. Somebody was asking for me one day, and they were saying, "Have you seen that Mike guy? Have you seen that Mike guy?" Someone said, "Which Mike?" And nobody knew my last. People didn't know my last name, so they said, "Well, White Mike," and that's kind of how I got that name. So anyway, I um, I left Atlanta after 13 years, and my wife and I started a church in my living room. And our church was very diverse. We had a very, maybe about 40% white, 40%, maybe 50% black, and then kind of a mix of everything else. It wasn't until I moved to Jacksonville that my eyes started opening to a lot of the systemic issues. Jacksonville is a big, small town full of a lot of great people. But there was a sheriff's race, and I don't want to take too long with this story. There was a sheriff's race, and a guy in my church was running for sheriff. And Jacksonville at that time was the murder capital of Florida, and we were just seeing families devastated, devastated. And when the election results came in, the guy that was in my church, a sweet man, he's passed on now, had lost, like, he was in third place at the bottom of the thing. And I comforted him and just, look, brother, you stepped out, it's all good. But when I looked at the election breakdown in the paper the next day, Jacksonville's northwest side, they used to call it the murder zone, where there were, I mean, just killings and killings and killings and killings. He had won every precinct in that part of town. But because of Jacksonville's consolidation, it's one big city. It's the largest geographical city in the continental United States. People where I lived, in a very fancy neighborhood, were determining the outcome of elections in a place that was crying out for help with law enforcement. And that singular moment where I realized that there were people that were saying they were being underserviced, and they 100% voted for a change in what was happening in their community. But even though they had the vote, they were disempowered because people not connected to the problem, where kids weren't getting shot getting off the school bus, where there weren't drive-bys, where there weren't, they didn't have any in memoriam T-shirts down where I live. Nobody's face was on a driveway, mural and all that stuff. And I realized, oh my gosh, these are not just people that I live with, grew up with, etc. These are people who are experiencing two different Jacksonville's, two different Americas. And that point launched me. And I mean, I taught series after series, I think I taught the first series, Are We Really One Nation Under God? And I think I lost about 600 families in that first series, teaching on race, racism, and religion. And it kind of went from there. So people who saw that, NPR, people came in, did interviews, etc. There was a person that said, hey, TED Talk is coming around and they want to talk to you. And that's how it happened. And like you said, the talk has been seen over 1 million times in its full form. In its clip form, where it's well over 10 million views, because something in it, in my clumsy way of communication, it touched something inside the heart of the nation. So I know it was a long answer, but that's how I got here. That's how we got here.
Wow. And I mean, excuse me, that particular TED Talk, it drew me in. And I know you have the anointing. I know God is all over you, because to be a white man in America and speak the way you spoke, it was different. It was different for me. I live here in Dallas, Texas. We've had our share of issues with, racism, people deemed to live below the lines of poverty. They call it the pockets of poverty here in town. Mm-hmm. There is a stark difference between the way I feel as a Black man and maybe you feel as a white man. Well, when I looked at your TED Talk, we feel exactly the same. That number one, there is a excuse me. Number one, there is a problem that's, crippling our nation. And so I want to just get right into it. Can you share some of your findings along the way on this matter of Black murder?
Yeah. So I keep waiting to wake up in a country, to wake up in a world where my talk that was given in 2014, which was the culmination of a lot of research that had taken place since 2007, I keep waiting to wake up in a world where that talk is old, outdated, and not relevant. And I have yet to wake up in that world. I want to wake up in a world where, depending on the study, the homicide rate affecting Black lives and the homicide rate affecting white lives is not a 9-to-1 ratio. And by some metrics, depending on certain cities you look in, it's up to a 30-to-1 ratio, which means Black people are dying in homicide at 30 times the rate of white Americans. And the statistics are so deceiving. So typically, not all the time, typically, murder rates rise under Republican presidencies and they fall under Democrat presidencies. That's a very complex thing that we'll probably have to do 2 or 3 more shows to get in. But coming out of the Bush 1 presidency into the Clinton presidency, we see 90, 91, 92. Cities were under siege, crack epidemic and all this other kind of stuff. And then through the Clinton years, they had people freaking out and not knowing what to do. We talk about the war on drugs and all of its negative connotations. And again, that's another show. But there was a time in Miami where there were 1,000 murders a year. People, rival factions shooting up a mall with Uzis. There was really, I think we forget about what the late 80s and early 90s were really like. And then it didn't end, but it leveled off. And it went through the 2000s, 2007, 8, towards the end of the Bush presidency. It was getting really ugly, and there's a lot to say about that. And I'm not blaming Democrats or Republicans; it's a complex thing. But then through the Obama years, murder in America started to level off, and there's a lot of reasons why. But it was around 12,000 murders a year, which were split evenly, roughly evenly, black and white. But the problem is, Black Americans only represent about 13% of the entire country. So if you say, well, there's about 5,500 white murders and about 5,300 black murderers or something like that, it's pretty even. It is nowhere near even. And I started thinking about, so if we were to get the stats instead of from 9-1 overrepresentation of black men, particularly involved in homicide, if we were to get it to 5-1, we would consider it a great victory. If we got it to 2-1, we'd be like, oh my gosh, we've done so great. Look at that, it's double. But no matter how you slice it, it's still this overrepresentation. And now in the past couple of years, it's climbed back up, of course, through the summer and through, again, a lot to this, but through the Republican presidency, it started climbing again. And it's dropped a little bit in 21, but it's not back to where it was, in the 2015, 2016, 2017. But it doesn't matter. Pick a year. Pick 2015, pick 2010, pick 2022, pick 1922. There has never been a year in my life, there's never been a year in the past 100 years, 120 years in this country in which Black Americans were not overrepresented by 5-1, 7-1, 10-1, 20-1 in the area of homicide. And so my talk was about, why is nobody discussing this? And I don't mean that in the Black community it's not an issue. It is. I don't mean that there are not a lot of organizations pushing, pulling, crying out to make a change. I'm talking about within the power structure. Within the power structure, people that look like me, we're desensitized to it, to the point where we say that's just what they do. And a lot of the white people are like, well, we're just scratching our heads, man. We don't know why. We don't know why. And it starts with, now I'm a Christian. My fundamental assumption is that all men are created in the likeness and image of God, and that they emerge from the womb as equal. But when you see a Black boy and a white boy born in America, you ought not be able to assign statistical predictions to that child. That child A is 8 times more likely than child B to be X, 7 times more likely. So it's not that we emerge from the womb different, but we emerge from the womb in 2 different worlds. And that is my entire life. And so my goal became, when will be the first year that we see that Black Americans are not so grossly overrepresented? And if that's what's happening downstream, what are the streams and the springs that flow into it to continue to sustain this dysfunction? And it's one of 2 things. There's either something wrong with them, or there's something wrong with us. And I think the vast majority of people have resigned themselves. And I've even heard a lot of Black clergy, Black comedians, a lot of people kind of resign themselves to, it's us. You know how we are. You know how we are. You know how our people can be. Well, I've heard pastors say, Black people, we can't have anything nice. We'll tear it up. Or you can't disrespect a Black man. That'll be your last life. F around and find out and all this stuff. And as an insider, outsider, I look and I go, okay. In what way is this something to celebrate? What way is this something to normalize? And it's been going on so long, people repeat it as though it's normal, and it should not be normal. I mean, my children, I was born into a world where this was normal. You were born into a world where this was normal. Are we going to die in a world where people go, yeah, it's just what happens? And it may be what's happening, but it's not what should be happening. And again, so my passion has always been to dig down to the roots, because if it's something wrong with them, we point fingers. If it's something wrong with us collectively, with the water that was being consumed in our nation, then we roll up our sleeves and say, how do we push this back? How do we stop the grindstone that's been going for 100 years? Getting in front of it to slow it down, getting in front of it to stop it, then getting the momentum to get it to go back the other direction. How long does that take? And so even though I say, well, it has nothing to do with me, I can't not speak, because again, I think when somebody not in the power structure speaks, people go, oh, there they go, they're upset about something, there they go, process it. And the theyness to me is a manifestation of the racism. Once you move from theyness to we-ness, now you're looking at a collective attempt to uproot and to pull the track back up and to put it in another direction.
Wow. So, I mean, Mike, what keeps you going on this? Because that TED Talk was, a few years back, I think 2015.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you really created a wave with that TED Talk, and here I am, excuse me, in 2022, I just found it. And I mean, what keeps you going on this issue?
Well, it's actually very personal, and I'll give you a little insight. So I don't know if you're a movie fan. There's a movie Tombstone, one of the great cowboy
Oh
movies
yeah.
ever made, and there's a scene in where Wyatt Earp's brother decides he's gonna join the law, and Wyatt Earp is like, "What are you doing? We came here to make money, man. What are you doing?" And Sam Elliott grabs Wyatt and he goes, "Man, I walk up and down these street and I look in the faces of these people, and here I am getting rich off this, and I feel like some sort of GD vulture." And he said, "I can't just look at this and not." And I'm certainly not a sheriff. I'm certainly not a hero, but I can't have been embraced as I was embraced at 16 years old, taken in as family, raised, loved, covered, supported, mothered, fathered, encouraged to this day, 30 years later, and then pretend that I don't see what is happening.
Wow.
And I can't just be enough to support. Well, I'll support y'all and what y'all are doing because um, I think sometimes it takes somebody that looks like me. And most of my talks are designed for people that look like me to awaken them to the reality. I do corporate events. I do for major Fortune 50 companies, um, education events, sports leagues. I mean, this is because this is a thing people want to discuss. Um, and I could probably just uh, pack up my microphone and go to my little corner of the world because it really this doesn't affect my children. It's not affecting, but I have received too much.
Mm.
Not I am in a debt of honor. It would be for me to not say my part. And I'm a high school dropout. Right? I have no formal education of anything. But if so I don't know enough to really know what I'm talking about. But I know too much not to say what I have on my heart to say.
Come
And
on
so
now.
here we are. And so that's what keeps me going.
Wow. And first of all, I just want to salute you, Pastor, for doing what you're doing what you've done. I just want to applaud you publicly on this platform to say, keep doing it, please, because people are
Thank you, sir.
watching, people are paying attention. And, one little drop of water doesn't look like much, but over years, that erosion can, create the Grand Canyon. I
Yes,
want to
yes.
switch gears real quick. This Sunday, I'm doing a show titled Murder Music. And
Mm.
so we've discussed murder in the Black community, homicide, the ratios, the stats. Let's switch gears to the music genre and let us know a little bit about your fight in that particular space.
So uh, I think the content of the music, the content that is branded as Black, sold as Black, that contains the celebration, trivialization, normalization of very racist ideas. So at the root of white supremacy, white supremacy is a pretty deep thing, but there are two primary drivers, or probably five, but two of them are um, that Blackness is associated with criminality, and Blackness is associated with hypersexuality. And I was walking through the Smithsonian on a tour with my family, and they have a whole wing of the American History Museum dedicated to America's wars, and you're walking through the Civil War and you're seeing it start, seeing this. And on the eve of emancipation, there's a senator that makes this statement and says, "Well, I hope you know when slaves go free, that the rapes, the robberies, and the murders are going to skyrocket all over the South. I hope you're prepared to see what happens when these people are free." And deep down inside the roots, the blood and soil of white supremacy is the idea that Blackness is on a DNA genetic level connected to hyper violence and hyper criminality and hyper sexuality. And so the music that normalizes this, that brands it, markets it, positions it, and you can go up and down the dial, go this way or that way on the dial. The only people you're going to hear about, and I'm saying only, 99.9% of the people you're going to hear about murder, dealing drugs, first person references to I have a gun and I'll kill you, first person references to your grandmother's going to cry when she's first. I mean, the only people that are doing that are Black artists on Black stations with Black marketed, Black targeted advertisers. And to me, and again, this is not, I'm not talking causality. I'm not saying this music is causing these things, although we would be lying to ourselves to say that music does not move us. Of course it does. That's its beauty, right? That it moves us. But I'm not trying to say that at the origination of this music was the time when all chaos broke loose. But I do think that the music itself and its ongoing mainstream celebration reveals our basic apathy and indifference towards the issue. And number two, it normalizes and I think desensitizes us to say, hey, this should not be. And no one even questions it. That's what's so sick. Jimmy Fallon, I love Jimmy Fallon. Congratulations to Questlove on his not only his Oscar, but his composure through the middle of what I just feel, anyway, don't get me on that. But Jimmy Fallon, I never forget seeing him. He had a female rapper on from Detroit, and her song was, the lyrics of the song were, try me and I'll kill your whole family. This is not a song. This is my real life. I'll kill you, your brother. Try me. I know you think this is an act. This is the way I really am. You think I'm just singing about it. Find out. And when it's over, Jimmy comes over from the desk and he's like, oh man, isn't she the best? Give her a hand, everybody. No one can even hear what's being said anymore. Just 2 weeks ago, Jimmy Fallon, same show. A guy comes out, same thing. I'm gonna kill you. I'm saying this is a song, but you know it's not a song. You know I keep these guns. You know I'm gonna kill you. Two Black guys, and Jimmy's like, oh man, you guys, because at the highest places of power, it's become so normal. Now, if they had said, I'm gonna kill a homosexual, they would have stopped it. If they said, I'm gonna kill a dog, they would have stopped it. If they said, I'm gonna shoot up a school, they'd say, hey. But when it's Black people singing about murdering other Black people, the power structures, the only thing it knows is, man, wasn't that great? And that, I'm not saying the music is causing anything, although it does affect mindsets, but I'm saying the falling dominoes of the normalcy that Blackness is associated with murder and criminality and hypersexuality has gone on so long that people just, oh yeah, nod their head, of course. Who else is gonna sing about it? So much so that when you hear a white guy singing about it, you go, what are you doing, trying to be Black? Because we've so normalized this for Black people that it's like, oh, you're trying to sound like a Black rapper. You're trying to sound like a Black guy. Since when we know in the real world, murder isn't only Black. We know drugs aren't only Black. We know that but in the entertainment world, it's more taboo for white people to be seen as the drug dealers and affirming and everything else, but it is normal. And that is indicative of the deep sickness that the nation has. The fact that there's an artist that says, I'm feeling something, I'm getting some lyrics, it's about killing, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna shoot you. The fact that a person comes up with that is problematic. Then the fact that an advertiser goes, that is good, can we put that on our name on that? Then a radio station listens to it and goes, oh yeah, kill him. Oh yeah, kill him. I don't want this on every station, but I want this on our hip hop station. Can we do? I mean, the fact that somebody buys it, when if it was a dog killing song, no one would buy it. It's not the music it's causing, it's the music that's revealing the deep, deep core beliefs that we have in this nation regarding the very concept of Blackness.
Wow. And so do you think censorship is the answer? Is it boycotting these sponsors? Give me your insight on that particular question.
Yeah, so I think you should be able to make whatever art you want. If you want to make art about killing homosexuals and dragging them behind trucks, hey man, free country. I just think that you ought not enjoy the collective goodwill of America if you make that. I don't think you should enjoy the corporate goodwill of America if you make that. You want to make white supremacist music? That's what's so interesting. If I make a white supremacist song, I'm going down to Brown Town and I'm going to kill all the ends and I'm going to kill all this and lynch you up and da da da. We say, man, that's white supremacist music. Walmart won't touch it. But if I get a black guy to say, I'm going to go down to the hood and kill you all and da da da, Walmart will be like, what would you think for $1 million if we were your primary sponsor? And it's still white supremacist music. But I don't know if boycotting, because what boycotting, I have a whole thing that I've been working on the past couple of years called the new nonviolence. And we have this idea, and here's just and I don't want to get off on a rabbit trail, but there's never been significant racial progress in this country apart from violence. Slavery was not resolved apart from violence, right? Buses were not integrated apart from violence. Even all our nonviolent heroes, right? It was not physical violence, but it was economic violence, disruptive violence, brand violence. And the problem with this violence I see is that it causes people to sit down on the outside, but they're standing up on the inside. Schools weren't integrated because there was a change of hearts in the South. They were integrated because federal troops were there with guns. And I find that the problem is that the market responds to violence instead of to a moral revolution. And so when George Floyd was killed, and all of a sudden you see every single company, here at Johnson & Johnson or here at Delta or here, we believe, what are they? Is that really the core value of your company? Or has the marketing team said, look, if we're not on this, we're going to lose? So are people being moved by money? Or are people being moved? So my goal, protesting, I think protest, boycott, I don't know. Protest to bring somebody awareness. Like we got Walmart to change their policy. We stood outside of Walmart, every Walmart in Jacksonville for 7 weeks, presented our materials, and they said, "You're boycotting Walmart?" No, I'm not boycotting Walmart. How could I? Walmart's, other than the military, then this is a number of years ago, it was the largest employer of African Americans in the United States. How can I'm not going to boycott Walmart. That's not my goal. My goal is to awaken the people there to go, hey, is this normal to you? And you know what? The vice president of marketing wrote me and said, look, we didn't understand it. You will not hear us on those stations anymore. Walmart's name does not want to be associated with normalizing what's going on in these inner cities. But 6 months later, their name popped back up, and I realized they responded to violence towards us. They responded. They didn't need us out in front of their stores. And so they said, yeah, totally, we get it. But once that pressure was removed, was it a core change inside Walmart, or was it a reaction? So buses got integrated. Why? Because after 355 days, we just can't economically afford to keep this going. But that's not a change on the inside. So what I want is Jimmy Fallon to go, you know what? I love everybody, and I know I work for Universal, and I know Universal has a cornerstone on all urban music, and I know in Universal this is normal music, but I don't want anybody coming on my show, Red, Yellow, Brown, Black, White, talking about murdering a black person. I don't want to do that anymore. And now all of a sudden, he has the power to denormalize this. You look at the Roots are on every time. You look at, they do rap segments and all this other kind of stuff. It's not, well, if you're young and black, this is all you know. That is a lie. There are so many MCs who would never cooperate with white supremacy to celebrate the death of another black man. But the economic value, if you want to make the money, you've got to come in and play this role America has issued to you. And my goal is not to boycott all these singers. I would never want to do that, but to awaken them. First of all, to take the chains of white supremacy off their own minds. And then secondly, if I can't get them, and maybe they've been raised in hell, raised in America's sewer, nourished on American species, maybe they don't know any better, but the guys in the boardroom do know better. And I can denormalize it in their minds and say, look, we love everybody, but we don't. You got Tim Fox from Apple. He has no songs on his station, on his iTunes, that talks about dragging homosexuals behind a truck. He would never. No one would ever. But he's got 1 million songs celebrate. And I just want Tim to go, you know what? This is ridiculous. I don't want this. Apple doesn't sell porn, not because they're trying to limit speech, but they're like, that goes against our brand. And guess what else Apple could say? Make whatever music you want. But the normalization of murdering black people, that's just not who we are. If we can make those changes of moral revolution, I think it'll be much more powerful than boycotts and protests and all that stuff.
Right. And so, Mike, for those white viewers that may be watching, give us some solutions. What can they do?
First of all, it starts with ears to hear. I did a corporate event for somebody not too long ago, and the CFO was like, you know what? He said, they sent me the notes that we were going to have this corporate training event. This is in the wake of George Floyd. And I was looking over the notes and I watched your TED Talk. And he said, and when I watched the TED Talk, I went to the gym afterwards, and in the gym for the first time, I heard the lyrics of the music. He said, all my, 20 years I've been listening, I never heard what was being said. So eyes, develop eyes and ears, a new awareness, a new sensitivity that is not normal. You would never have a song. No one would ever taught a song about killing Republicans or killing Democrats. Date rape. You saw the huge thing with Rick Ross. Rick Ross comes out with a date rape lyric. Was kind of even maybe not a date rape lyric. Maybe it was. It was kind of, but it didn't matter. I mean, he got dropped by sponsors. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, Reebok fired him immediately.
If you ask Rick Ross, do you believe in date rape? Not at all. You ask Rick Ross, you sing about killing other black kids. Do you believe in that? Man, not at all. Somebody needs to help him say, okay, I'm cooperating with white supremacy every time I talk about the murder of another black man. So white people starting to go, you know what? Just because it doesn't affect me doesn't mean I'm cool with it. Because when it's what they sing and it's what they do and it affects them, then we're not really engaged. So that would be step one. Step two, I don't want to tell people necessarily what to do, but at some point you have to use your voice. There are just certain things you don't want to normalize. And unfortunately, as a white person, if you go to your gym and say, hey, I don't like this music, you look like, oh, you're just a white person against rap music, which is ridiculous. Nobody's against rap music, but they've got to use their sphere of influence. It starts with what you put in your own ears, what you put in your own eyes, and then why. I love when I grew up with the Beastie Boys, and I have nothing personally against the Beastie Boys, but their first major album, License to Ill, is one of the most profound microcosms of white supremacy that you could ever imagine. It's these Jewish kids who wanted to look like the streets and began to repeat what they were hearing. I'm out on bail. I just got out of jail. The FBI's tapping my phone. I'm dealing drugs. I got a gat. I'm gonna kill you. I drink, this beer and whatever it was.
Brass Monkey.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Look at me. And white kids in where I lived, it was the first time that it got translated. We had heard Run DMC, that crossover with Aerosmith, and they were making it more appealing to white audiences. But the idea of, criminality and killing, and yeah, you just shot somebody and you just pulled out a gun and shot him in the face. It wasn't too long before, a couple years later, NWA comes along. And NWA starts with protest, starts with being against the gangster, being against the killer, being against the drug dealer. That's where they start. Because you sell this crack to my sister and I'm mad at you and blah, blah, blah. And then it's only a matter of little time beyond that before that we're singing about on the edge like we're against it, but now we're the first person actual people doing it. And we go through 2 Live Crew and can we sing about this as a matter of free speech? And of course, all these upset white people, how could you do it? How could you do it? But it's passed. And it's like, look at this great victory for what? As long as it stayed in a certain community, branded and marketed as a certain community, talk about whatever you want to talk about. Why? Because we're not going to accept that inside our community. And we love to watch y'all talk about whatever you want to talk about. We love it when y'all get up and say it, and y'all get up, because that's providing entertainment for us. But the pain of it is so far removed from the typical white person in this country that it's to the white listener, it's just a fantasy. So in every sphere of influence you can influence, to denormalize this, talk to your children. Have conversations at the water cooler. Denormalize. Say, oh man, did you see the Super Bowl? Yeah, wasn't it a great Super Bowl? Yeah, it was. Let me ask you this: from 50 Cent, Snoop Dogg, and Dre, what songs can they sing at the Super Bowl that don't have to have edits and remixes and changes to the content? You can't tell me. Listen, tell me their top 10 most famous songs, and at the core of them is, "I got a gun, I'll kill you. I'm this." And it's like, well, we can change that around for the Super Bowl. We are celebrating people who made very American, right? The most American thing you can do is make money at the expense of the dignity of Black people, and then later on grow a conscience, right? That's the most American thing you can do, is dehumanize Black people, normalize the systemic racism, and after you make your million, say, well, let me give a little charity back to these organizations. You saw that at the Super Bowl. It was, why? Because these are our heroes, these great artists whose art has been hijacked by white supremacy. And I looked up, give me Snoop's top 10 hits, Dre's top 10 hits, 50 Cent's top 10 hits. They got to edit those. They can't go out and say they're real songs. Why? Because their real songs are built and branded in these concepts of white supremacy. So we nod along to the beat, we have these reminiscences, but nobody even has ears to hear what was being said because it's normal. And so in any way you can denormalize it. And again, I'm not against the artist at all. I'll give you this last one, DaBaby, right?
Right.
He makes a comment that's perceived to be anti-LGBTQ. Instantaneous blowback. He's got 500 songs celebrating the murder of Black people. And everybody goes, oh yeah, oh yeah. Wait, what'd you just say about gay people?
Right.
Because you get a job normalizing white supremacist concepts of Blackness being associated with criminality and hypersexuality. You lose a job touching the sensitivities of the power structure. And what I'm trying to do is waken the power structure to go, just because it's not affecting us does not mean we should economically cooperate, culturally cooperate and support. Yeah, but here's the thing. If I tell Apple or Clear Channel or whatever these things, iHeartRadio, look, all I'm saying is go through your entire thing and just don't play anything that celebrates the murder of Black people anymore. They instantly say, well, that's going to affect our Black artists. How did you know it was going to affect your Black artists? Because you already know you're at peace with this being normalized. And it doesn't have to target anybody. Just say, look, across the board, we don't want to hear you celebrating an AK-47 and shooting somebody. Do I think that changing that is going to change what's happening in the cities of America? No, I don't. But it'll put us on the right side of it, that we won't be saying yes to it on one hand and crying over it on the other hand. Just like, do I think that taking a date rape lyric out will change rape in this country? No, I do not. But it'll at least put us on the right side of the issue as a mass of citizens of goodwill.
Wow. Pastor Mike, you have done an amazing job. I just want to thank you one more time. You're definitely a trailblazer, a leader, pioneer in this space. And, you know, whatever I can do to help you along the way, I definitely will. Thank you so much for,
Eric,
coming on.
Man, thank you for having me on. I'm glad it worked. Thank you for your grace and just coordinating it.
Yes,
and just bless your audience. And I know what I'm saying is hard to hear. But just pause a minute, And we've already heard all the objections. Well, what about Marilyn Manson? What about this? Okay, I'll give you Marilyn Manson. How many artists do you think I can put down next to Marilyn Manson? Well, what about, somebody said to me one time, are you kidding me? You think that this is a race issue? What about I Shot the Sheriff by Eric Clapton? I was like, okay, well, let's go back, number one, to 1974. Then we'll talk about where that song came from. And are you saying to me we should look at all music between now and 1974? There's no issue here. This is a racist industry support with people who are sustaining racism that don't even know they're doing it. And I'm just trying to awaken people to these falling dominoes and get them back the other way. So thank you for your audience. Thank you, Brother Eric, for having me on. You reached out, and I'm glad, because I normally don't do these things because I have so much going on, but
Yes.
I just felt my heart, this would be a great conversation. So thank you for letting me be part of it. No, man, it was a blessing to me. It was a blessing to me.
Thank you so much, Pastor. And hopefully we'll definitely get you back on soon this year.
It'd be my joy.
All right. Thank you again, Pastor. All right, guys, that was Pastor Michael Smith. Is Black murder normal? That's something that we're hearing a lot of. And it's almost becoming to a point where, is it really normal? We have to look at the stats. This broadcast was sponsored by Mother's Basket DeSoto, 208 Northampton Road, Suite C in DeSoto, Texas. And we definitely appreciate all those that support. Until next time, guys, Sunday Night Live, author Eric Johnson, be blessed.
Everything you want in life, I believe, is right outside your comfort zone.
Author Eric Johnson, The Switch Within. Author Eric Johnson, The Switch Within. Sunday Night Live.